The name echoed in the vast, sterile cloning facilities of Kamino. Tyrannus. It was a whisper, a ghost of a name, attached to the man who commissioned an army of millions for the Galactic Republic. Jango Fett, the template, spoke it with a chilling nonchalance to Obi-Wan Kenobi. At that moment, it was merely a puzzle piece, a loose thread in a galactic mystery. The Jedi, desperate for an army to combat the Separatist threat, embraced these clones, these loyal, disciplined soldiers, as their saviors. They were the Grand Army of the Republic, and for a time, they were everything the Jedi needed, a beacon of hope against the rising tide of separatism. But the Force, as it always does, eventually reveals truth. Years later, amidst the swirling chaos of the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker found themselves locked in a different kind of battle, a battle of information, of uncovering the true architect behind the conflict. The pieces began to click into place, not gently, but with the jarring force of a collapsing star cruiser. Tyrannus, the name from Kamino. It was a name Dooku, Count of Sereno, now revealed as Darth Tyrannus, had used to hide his identity. The horrifying realization wasn't just that Dooku was a Sith Lord, a traitor to the Jedi Order he once served. It was far, far worse. Imagine the silence that must have fallen between Obi-Wan and Anakin as this truth dawned upon them. The man who had hired Jango Fett, the man who ordered the creation of the very army they commanded, was their greatest enemy. Dooku, a former Jedi Master, now a Sith Lord, was the one who had essentially handed the Republic its weapon. This wasn't merely a strategic maneuver, it was a psychological weapon aimed directly at the heart of the Jedi Order. How do you process such a betrayal? The soldiers they fought alongside, the ones they trained, protected, and entrusted their lives to, were a gift from the enemy. Every victory felt tainted. Every act of heroism by a clone trooper became a reminder of Dooku's cunning. It plunged the Jedi into a profound crisis of faith. They had championed justice, peace, and the Republic, yet their instruments of war were tainted at their very genesis. This wasn't just about military strategy, it was an existential blow. The Jedi had always been guardians, peacekeepers, but now they were generals leading an army commissioned by their most formidable adversary. They were forced to question everything: the nature of the war itself, the purity of their cause, even the loyalty of their own forces. Was this a war of liberation, or merely a grand, elaborate puppet show orchestrated by the Sith? The emotional toll must have been immense. For Anakin, who often struggled with trust and control, this revelation would have deepened his anxieties, feeding his nascent fears about the Order's perceived failings. For Obi-Wan, ever the pragmatist, it must have been a crushing blow to his faith in the larger plan of the Force, challenging his very understanding of good and evil. They were fighting a war where they couldn't even trust their own soldiers, not because of individual clone loyalty, but because of the insidious origins of their entire military structure. This was a masterstroke of Sith manipulation. Dooku, under the guidance of Darth Sidious, didn't just create an army, he engineered a trap. He placed the Republic, and by extension the Jedi, in an impossible position. To refuse the clone army meant certain defeat against the Separatist droid legions. To accept it meant embracing a force conceived in the shadows of their enemy's grand design. They were caught in a snare with no good options. The insidious beauty of it, from a Sith perspective, was that it guaranteed their victory regardless of the battle's outcome. The clones fought bravely, loyally, protecting the Jedi and the Republic. Yet their very existence served a deeper, darker purpose, one that would not be revealed until the final, devastating act of betrayal. The chips, the programming, the ultimate Order 66 were already embedded, waiting for the perfect moment. The Jedi, unsuspecting, were nurturing the very instruments of their own destruction. The revelation of Dooku's role as Tyrannus didn't just change the course of the Clone Wars, it fundamentally shattered the Jedi's perception of reality. It was a constant, gnawing doubt, an invisible scar on every strategic meeting, every battlefield victory. They were fighting a war where the lines between friend and foe, between savior and destroyer, had been horrifyingly blurred. It was a testament to the sheer depth of Sith cunning, leaving the Jedi psychologically vulnerable, unknowingly marching towards their own tragic end, led by an army they believed to be their salvation. This profound manipulation, this ultimate deception, serves as a powerful reminder of how even the most enlightened can be ensnared when facing an enemy who plays a game on a truly galactic scale, with patience and foresight that spans decades. What are your thoughts on this astonishing reveal? How do you think the Jedi should have reacted? Share your insights in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the psychological warfare of Star Wars, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more explorations into the galaxy far, far away. Until next time, may the Force be with you.